I talk about the waste problem in the solar industry and how it's kind of this hidden but monumental problem in the industry, and how the status quo in our industry is wooden pallets. That what's unique in solar is that they're generally used once and then thrown into landfills. We're literally throwing millions of pallets into landfills every single year. We are the industry's first and only reusable packaging company that is making a turnkey solution for our customers. So we came to market with the PVpallet Series X. It was the first reusable package that was custom built for shipping solar panels. We are going to eliminate literally billions of pounds of wood waste from landfills and billions of pounds of solar panel breakage waste. We will make this industry better, greener, more sustainable, and more cost effective in the process.
If you've ever been on a solar site, predominantly a large-scale solar site, but really resi all the way through, then you may have noticed a silent secret killer to profitability across the industry, something that also has been increasingly creating an unreasonable amount of waste, and that is the lowly, humble bottom of the pile, the pallet. In fact, the thing that the solar panels sit on that delivers them to site. Why we haven't tried to address this issue, not just in the solar industry, but in construction across the board, I haven't even thought to ask myself, but today's guest has. And he's going to unpack for us the entrepreneurial journey of trying to reinvent, revolutionize, and innovate around this seemingly simple technology so that we can deliver on the promise of our industry of cleaning up the earth, not deploying millions of wooden panels, rotted in many ways, back into the landfills. I have been thrilled to kind of unpack and understand this story, and today it is my honor to bring Phillips Schwarz to the show, the co-founder and CEO of PVpallet. The name is perfect. It's great marketing. It tells you exactly what the business is trying to accomplish to revolutionize this whole concept of why the PVpallet is currently not serving our industry the way that it should. If you dig these kinds of entrepreneurial stories, folks on the front lines of the clean energy transition trying to unearth and redesign the way that we create energy, the way that we deploy it around the world, you're in the right place. If you're new to Suncast, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving us your ears, your attention, and the only thing you won't get back, and that's your time. I promise you're investing it well. Phillips Schwarz has spent more than 15 years in the industry. He's got a deep mechanical engineering background, and when he was approached with this unique entrepreneurial problem, thankfully, he had already primed the pump, thought about what entrepreneurship should look like, and he decided to tackle this problem. We'll find out why and where he has taken it and how you can learn from his entrepreneurial journey in today's Suncast. And if you love these kinds of deep dive conversations, you're in the right place. More than 700 episodes with leaders just like Philip prove that we are digging into the mind, the mindset, the way that businesses are built on the front lines of the clean energy transition so that you can apply it to your business and your career. Get ready to tune up your skills, Solar Warrior, as we tune into another powerful conversation here on Suncast. Philip, we talk about a breadth of topics here on Suncast that covers everything from designing and building solar panels and batteries to to how to set up a 90-day onboarding plan for new employees. This is the first time I've really gotten to the very foundational level of the industry, something that the whole industry sits on, literally, the pallet. I love the topic. We're going to dig into how, where, when, and why this idea came to you. But when you are being introduced to someone who has virtually no idea kind of how the solar industry works, let alone the niche of a niche that is the logistics side of it, how do you talk about the macro problem that you're trying to solve?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thanks for having me, by the way. It's an honor to be on the podcast. But to answer your question, honestly, I tell people I'm a pallet guy, which I never thought I'd say. Given my background in solar and engineering and things, now I'm making plastic boxes. But I talk about the waste problem in the solar industry and how it's kind of this hidden but monumental problem in the industry. And how the status quo in our industry is wooden pallets. That what's unique in solar is that they're generally used once and then thrown into landfills.
That is unique.
And I explain, you go to a Costco or a grocery store and sometimes you see pallets getting reused. Well, that doesn't happen in our industry. So we're literally throwing millions of pallets into landfills every single year. And that problem is only growing with the industry. And I also talk about the solar panel breakage and how when you buy a flat screen TV, if it showed up in your doorstep wrapped in a piece of cardboard and shrink wrap and that's it, you'd probably send it back, right? And probably expect it to be broken. Well, we're shipping giant sheets of glass wrapped in cardboard.
Yeah.
So the breakage problem in the industry that's associated with the packaging is massive too. And once I started talking about that, it starts to click with people what I do.
What are some numbers around the statistics of breakage of panels that might astound folks that are unfamiliar?
Yeah, well, from the cost standpoint, it's costing our industry billions of dollars every year.
Wow.
So what we always talk about is the fact that essentially, and some of this is anecdotal and some of it's actually from real world, data collection, but generally speaking, every touch point in the supply chain, you see 1% to 2% breakage of solar panels.
Okay.
So
from manufacturing to logistics to site to building.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, on a utility scale job site, you might see somewhere in the range of 0 to 2%. 3 would be a really bad site. You go to a commercial job site where maybe it's gone through a distribution channel and you start to see in the 3 to 5% range. In resi, where they've actually oftentimes been repackaged and palletized in smaller loads, you can see upwards of 7% breakage or more. And it's not just the cost of the breakage.
Yeah.
Then you have guys on site that are sitting around idle waiting for new panels to show up. You've got the cost of replacement. You've got the cost of disposal. So all these costs add up immensely. So we've actually had a case study done with one customer. Say the cost of a new solar panel is $200. They actually calculated that to them, one broken solar panel costs all in around $800 to replace when you account for all those hidden costs.
We're talking 200, 300,000 solar panels just in the resi sector. Like, we're not talking about the utility scale. We're talking into the hundreds of thousands just in the residential sector alone of product that is broken due to poor logistics by and large because of the way that we palletize this product.
Exactly.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, it's wild. It adds up very quick. And then, the U.S. numbers are one, and then you look at the global numbers, and it's literally a multi-billion-dollar problem every single year.
Why do you suppose no one has tried to fix this?
I get asked that question a lot, and I think a lot of it just comes down to we're a young industry.
Yeah.
Everybody's very focused on the innovation on the power side of the industry.
Yeah.
And they've just accepted the packaging as a status quo, right? There's never been a better option, so it just is.
But aren't wooden pallets used in other parts of construction, or is it just not consequential?
Well, the difference in the solar industry, you think about like a conventional power plant, right? There's a lot of very big, unique equipment that goes into like a natural gas plant. A solar plant's very commoditized, very high volume, the same product and over. So what may be a relatively smaller problem in terms of construction waste on other types of power projects, it's a massive problem on solar projects.
I'm thinking outside of solar and power in general, but pallets. Like, pallets are, in our industry, they're a problem. Are they not also a problem in other industries?
Of course they are. Construction waste is a massive, it's one of the biggest waste streams in the country.
Okay.
Our mission as a company was to start focused on solar because, it's essentially a wide open market.
Clean up your neighborhood.
Yeah, and clean up what we do and do what we know best. So.
How about that? So introduce us then. We've already sort of done it, but introduce us then to PVpallet and how the business that you're building is going to solve the problem that we've just enunciated.
Sure. Yeah, so we are the industry's first and only reusable packaging company that is making a turnkey solution for our customers. So we came to market with the PVpallet Series X, which if you go to our website, you see that. It was the first reusable package that was custom built for shipping solar panels. Dimensionally perfect fit. And we baked in a couple other features that make it not just a good fit to get from point A to point B, but also adds efficiencies on the labor side and the warehouse storage side.
Features like what?
Well, we can stack our pallets 4 high, for example.
And that's not possible with wooden pallets.
It's not possible as a bold statement, but it's not recommended.
Not advisable.
Most module manufacturers, they say you shouldn't stack more than 2 high.
Okay.
Now, sometimes you go in a warehouse and see people are not following those recommendations, but with our pallets, they have sidewalls. So when you stack, there's no weight on the modules themselves.
So as a 40 high cube, is that only 2 pallets high?
In a
40-foot high cube, it's still only 2 pallets high. Okay.
Yeah, and a 53-foot dry van is the same as 2 pallets high. But you go to a warehouse, so we don't improve on the truck height stack.
Right.
But in a warehouse, we can cut your warehouse space in half because now you can stack twice as high.
That makes a big difference, not so much for the 3PLs and the CEDs, but for the independent installers. That warehouse space is a premium.
Exactly. Yeah. Warehouse space is not cheap. So any way you can make that more efficient, more organized, and the warehouse is great.
I don't know why, but in my mind, I'm seeing like, I remember the last time I went into Good Faith Energy down in Austin. Mo has a fun, like they went into a new building and they have stacks and stacks, like every module manufacturer you can think of, really, that are like considered in top tier. They have some, number of pallets of it, and they're stacked up there. And I'm thinking about how big a footprint that takes in their warehouse, and it's only, because they do it right, it's only too high.
Yep.
And it's a really large area that is occupied that they could dedicate to something else.
Oh, yeah.
Not the least of which, their expanding team.
Well, and on that point, when you've got multiple manufacturers, multiple models of panels, you end up with partial pallet loads sitting in your warehouse. Right. And how do you organize that? Our pallets have a load management system, so you can keep the modules upright, keep it all very organized, and warehouse friendly on that front.
I know this is going to go down a little bit the rabbit hole, but are solar panels packaged stacked on top of the other on pallets, or are they packaged vertically? Like, how does this work?
They're both, and frankly, neither one is the silver bullet, right?
No.
So, in general, the installers, they prefer a flat stack. It's easier to take the module off one by one.
Yep.
However, when you flat stack, that's when you get a lot of deflection, right?
Oh, okay.
You think about a 2x4 laid flat, it's very bendy, you stand on its end, it's a lot more robust.
Yeah, if you ever take the doors down in your home, do not lay them flat.
Exactly.
Lay them, put them up against the wall.
Right.
And make sure
So that's, they prefer flat stack. However, the deflection means when you flat stack, you tend to get more breakage. So that's why I would say, I'd have to double check this, but I would say most manufacturers these days tend to vertical stack just because it reduces the breakage, which is a liability for them.
Yeah, and especially glass, like the dual bidirectional or bifacial modules.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and when you vertical stack, you get kind of that additional rigidity from the aluminum frames that helps keep the modules from bending and breaking. So, but you think about that from an installer standpoint, you get a pallet of modules that are stood on their end that are banded. As soon as you cut the bands, those want to fall over, and that's 2,000 plus pounds of solar panels that want to fall over onto a field guy. It's not a very safe or good situation. So we've seen people that back their cars up to the pallet and then unband them. So I'm not joking. It's just so the modules don't all fall over on them. So it's
like the tailgate of a truck.
Yeah, like installers do not like the vertical stack from that standpoint.
How interesting. Okay.
All these things I never would have known.
Oh, there's so many more ways that you'll be able to geek out on things that pallets, that we need to know about pallets. By the time we're done with this interview, you'll be an expert on, the listener, you'll be an expert on how pallets work. I guess that you'll probably question how you have interacted with pallets if you are listening all the way through this. And more importantly, questioning where else might we find waste in the waste stream that we need to address. When you think back, PVPallet started when? What year?
Well, back in the napkin concept was 2019.
Right.
We officially became a LLC
You're
in
still a
2020. Baby. We're getting there.
Baby. So in 2020, you and I both been in the industry for more than 15 years. When you started looking at this product, if you reflect back 5, 10, 15 years, I think timing is everything. What needed to be true for PVPallet to work? And I'll note before you answer this question that around 2020 in the pandemic, when I first saw PVPallet and then come on to sort of the radar screen, I was like, now this is this really smart, novel idea, but damn, this is really going to be hard. Like, how in the heck are these guys going to commercialize this product?
Yeah.
The status quo is so hard to disrupt here. So what do you think needed to be true for you to get enough traction that you could get SBIR loans, that you could get grants from the DOE, that you could get your first customer, which this week, by the time this publishes, we'll be able to announce, so you can talk about it here as well.
I'm excited.
Your first really big manufacturing customer. Like, what needed to be true for that to be possible?
Man, how much time do we have? There's so many things.
I'm wondering it like on an infrastructure level, a technology level, a scale of the industry level. Like, maybe unpack those 3 or 4.
Well, I think from a timing standpoint, PPA prices, the general market has come down so much that to me that lends itself to there's room to invest into other places of the market to make improvements, right?
Yeah.
Like, how much lower can PPAs go? When we started out, PPAs were $5, 25, I don't know.
Oh yeah. Well, we were saying, remember the Sunset Reservoir in San Francisco, $25 a megawatt hour.
It's insane. Yeah.
It is insane.
Yeah, and like I started at Abengoa back in the day, and when solar thermal was still competitive, right?
Yeah.
Like we were building massive solar thermal projects with molten salt storage because that was still cost competitive to PV. So point being, everybody wants to eke out lower and lower prices, but at some point, I think we need to invest in efficiencies. And I think we've gotten to the point where there is room to play and everybody can still make money while making things better.
Yeah, I talked about this recently with Adam Sagai as well, because the same conversation is true around recycling.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
There wasn't a cost point where we could start thinking, it was like, oh, that'd be nice to have if we could only get to the place where we could start thinking about these hard problems.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And the great thing about PVPallet is that it's one of the few, if not only times in my life I've found something that you can go green and save money.
Yeah.
It's like to go green, oftentimes it costs. And that's just the reality of things. But the long-term savings is there when you switch to reusable packaging. It's a shift in mindset, but there's no doubt that over time you'll save money by doing it.
Is there anything technologically, like the way that things are, plastic mold injection technology or anything like that just didn't exist 5, 10, 15 years ago if you tried to do this?
In terms of the plastic industry, I would say not really, but we certainly pushed the envelope with our design.
Yeah.
There were very few people that could mold a part as large as we needed to ship solar panels. And it also required a unique type of injection molding called structural foam. So and there's very few molders that have structural foam molds out there. So we were kind of, there wasn't a lot of options to choose from. It's not like you could go pick up, Google some local injection molder and make this pallet. So just from that aspect, I think there was, we pushed the envelope. We heard no a lot. We questioned
from CMs, like people who you were asking to make this.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's not many people out there that can do it. And even the ones that could question whether it was doable because it's such a large part. And the way that our braces fold into the sidewalls, believe it or not, there's a very unique engineering challenge. Because if you think about from a structural standpoint, when the brace nests in the wall, every cross section of the brace that's in the wall makes the wall that much thinner, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So now instead of, if you look at our wall and it's 4-ish inches thick, our brace is 2 inches thick. So now you're actually working with a 2-inch thick wall.
Yeah.
And that poses a challenge from the stacking standpoint. So there were molding challenges, there were design challenges, and frankly, I just think nobody had taken the time to really dig into this and figure out how to make it work. So
there were much bigger problems to solve earlier in the time scale. That makes sense.
And honestly, like, again, you and I have been in the industry a long time. I've worked for big EPCs. I worked on the consulting side. I worked with developers. I never fully grasped how big of a problem this was.
Right. I would argue many people listening do not understand how big of a problem.
I've been on job sites and you don't really see the waste, right? Like if you go to the part of the block that's being worked on, usually the waste is gone already. Or if you're doing a startup, like I did startups, and the waste is already offsite at that point.
I'll tell you, if somebody's listening and you want to better understand the scale of that problem specifically, because we go into detail, but Emily O'Leary from Green Clean Solar did a great job of explaining the on-site waste problem. I would refer people to that episode specifically if you want to really dig deep and better understand that side of it, because it goes beyond the pallet. There's so much waste happening on a project site and the construction industry writ large. But we'll stick to solar for today. My first question to you, when I really wanted to dig in and better understand the business model, is from a business model perspective, the natural question is, well, who's your customer, right?
Yes.
Because it's not NextEra.
Right.
Like at best, NextEra could go, we think this is a great idea, right? Or, name your IPP could say, we think this is a fantastic idea. Or Amazon could be like, we love this idea. And they could try to pull it through. But you don't sell to the developer.
No. Right now, we're actually selling across the whole supply chain, believe it or not. We've sold to EPCs, distribution, we've sold to installers.
People that believe it,
Exactly.
The early adopters in the supply chain.
There's enough value add, in the features and things that we provide that everybody's found some sort of a niche benefit from it. But ultimately, you're spot on. We're not selling to developers, and that is one of our challenges: is who buys these, right?
Right.
And you can skin the cat several different ways. So, to me, the developer, the project owner, ultimately the savings rolls up to those guys. So they should be the champions that say we want this on our job sites, and it's also good PR for them, right, to have a clean job site. So they can dictate the change. There's still kind of a finger pointing between the manufacturer and the installer of who should buy them, right?
Yeah.
Who owns these pallets? Who should buy them? Who manages them? And that's one of the things we've done as a company is tried to pivot so that that's not a problem anymore. So we're working on a rental program and building that up. It's very capital intensive. So as a startup, it's a big reach to get to that point. But that's kind of the third option is
a rental program. It's an interesting model. Like it's taking what's happened in almost every industry writ large, the movement towards monthly and annual recurring revenue, the movement towards some type of a subscription product.
Most importantly, it makes it the easiest. It's the easiest answer for the customer, right? Because now if with a rental program, they're operating the same way they are today. It's just a recurring line item expense on the project. They're not having to own the fleet or manage the fleet or repair, refurbish. It's pretty much turnkey, just like it is today. So in an ideal world, that's like the easiest win for everybody. But that's again, startup.
That's so many questions.
Capital intensive.
For how that works.
Yeah.
At the risk of losing that thread, maybe you'll help me come back to it. But because I'm genuinely curious, like, okay, well, where does the product sit? If it's a rental, where's it going to and from?
That would be all us. We manage it, we warehouse.
You have your own 3PL?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're partnered with a logistics company in Iowa. So we actually, this is, I don't know if you know this or not, it's kind of, it's in the background. It's a little bit public, but we haven't really been pushing it yet. But we're building up a reverse logistics program called PV Loop. PV Loop.
No, I've not heard of this.
Yeah, so it's turnkey, basically reusable packaging management for our customers.
Oh, how cool.
So it's all managed in a TMS platform.
What's TMS?
Transportation management software. So we can track, because with reusables, great thing about reusables is you can add RFID or GPS tracking,
That's one of the
barcode
questions
scanning.
I was going to ask. What kind of technology can you infuse into it?
Yeah. So you can see where it is at every point in the supply chain.
Amazing.
On our TMS system, and we can tell you where your pallets are. What's really exciting to me as a solar environmental nerd is with all that, not only can we do transportation analytics, but we can do environmental analytics. So we can tell you how many pounds of wood waste you've diverted from landfills. Our pallets are made of recycled plastic. So how much plastic you've kept out of landfills.
How do you source
footprint.
that recycled plastic?
It's all sourced we have our injection molding done by a third-party company in Ohio, and they source all the recycled plastic, But it's what I love about it, I tell this story sometimes, we have a peanut butter jar full of the plastic grind that goes into the molds. It's literally like at end of life, our pallets, you can just shred them up and put the plastic right back in.
They go back into toothbrushes and stuff like that.
Yeah. And it's cool because in the plastic grinds, a lot of them are black, which means if they're black, they've probably already been recycled at least once. Because you think of like a palette of paint, if you mix it all together, it turns like this dark grayish brown color. But there's also bright pinks and oranges and blues and all those. If you see a bright color, that means it's being recycled for the first time, which is really cool to see. Like actual visual.
Does it come out like that in the pallet itself?
No, it all mixes together in the mold, so you can't see it once it's in the pallet.
But going into like a multicolor pallet, that'd be nice. What are some of the milestones that point to like this is working? I know that you raised a little capital. It was mostly like bootstrapped by your co-founder to begin with. But how did you get to that momentum point where the flywheel's like working for you? And who were some of the key customers, if you can mention them along the way, that helped you get there?
Some of the key milestones, I mean, for one, as with any manufacturing process, you come up with a prototype, a minimum viable product. And we, I hate to say it, but just because of our overall messaging, but our prototype we built out of wood. Believe it or not.
That's awesome.
We 3D printed some of the more intricate parts of it, like the hinges and latches and things that had to go into it. But yeah, we had a prototype made out of wood. And we took that to the molding manufacturers to say, can you guys make this, obviously. But we also started kind of doing a little road show with that to regional installers and
imagine, if you
distributors.
will, this is blown injection molded plastic.
And we got great feedback from it.
That's cool.
So that was one of the big milestones, kind of it gave you the assurance that we were on the right track.
Right.
I'd say the next big kind of traction moment was, my God, we invested a lot of money into our injection molds, over $1 million, and there's really no way around that.
Where'd that
injection molding? That was VC money.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you raised the seed round, pre-seed, something like that?
Seed. We call it a seed one.
Yeah.
Raised $1 million, which in hindsight didn't even cover the full cost, but that's a lesson learned. But yeah, it was ISA Ventures in Iowa was our seed investor. And really, there's no shortcut in injection molding. Like, you have to make the whole mold. So that's one of the biggest barriers to entry is in injection molding, is because it's a significant investment.
A single purpose mold. Nobody else is using it.
Right. Like, it's a big bet. Like,
Downtime is...
If we're wrong, we have $1 million hunk of metal that, what the hell are we going to do with it? So, but we had the mold made, and we took our first production units to Intersolar in 2022. And the feedback was phenomenal.
Okay.
Right. We had this thing on the show floor. Everybody was coming up to us, and I can't tell you how many times we heard, like, how come no one's done this? Like, I've been waiting on this forever. And just like hearing that kind of feedback all day long for 4 straight days was, just what we needed to hear. Right.
Which Intersolar was this? 22?
22. Yeah. So, you feel good from that. And then this is what should have been a feel good milestone, but in hindsight wasn't. But we started basically putting together a pre-order list or an interest list, if you will. And we were very excited by that, because in our minds, we had already sold almost 1,000 pallets before we'd even come to production.
Right. The old get your customers to say yes before you go to production.
Well, in theory, yes. In reality, there was no deposit or anything taken.
Right.
And I don't know what the final number was. We probably sold maybe 50 pallets, not 1,000.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. So
your guys in Iowa weren't too thrilled with the results.
No, not at that point. But we were already marching down the path, right?
Yeah.
The interest was there. It was just, I think it was a fault in the way we structured like the pre-order. Like, we should have found a way to get some teeth in people to actually commit, not just say, I'll take 500 pallets, sure, whatever.
That's a huge entrepreneurial lesson.
Yeah.
Early in that process.
Yeah. But then later on, we came to market in June of 22, and that's when we started shipping our first product. Our first big win was with BayWa. We signed a partnership agreement with them. They ordered, I think it was 2 truckloads, either 1 or 2 truckloads of pallets, and they distributed them throughout the country to 10 or so different locations. Yeah, very excited about that. We had kind of a marketing campaign with them, did a little podcast.
On their podcast, right?
Yeah.
Talked about it.
Yep. So that was it seemed to be a big win, I think, but it kind of fell flat. And I think a big part of that is they didn't really know how to sell these things either, right?
So this is on the distribution side, not on the development side. Yeah. They wanted to get behind you, and they saw the opportunity. They like the value differentiation.
Yes, and they like, I will say they are believers in, there's people in our industry that say they believe in being green, and there's people that actually do, and they definitely do believe in it. But they were buying these pallets, and it's like, kind of, how do we resell these? Do we put the modules in them and then sell them? It was never really figured out. And frankly, I think the juice just kind of wasn't worth the squeeze for them to figure that out when they kind of had bigger fish to fry. So that one...
Again, this is why nobody had tried to solve this problem to begin with.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Is there a moment in that, since like since 22 to now, that you yourself became, as the entrepreneur believer, like, okay, this is actually going to work now. This is no longer a pipe dream.
I've believed in it since the beginning.
Yeah, but there's always that moment where you cross the threshold. It's like no looking back. This is like, our investors are going to be proud of what we're doing now. What was that moment?
Well, the one, again, like you said, that we will be able to talk about once this comes out is the Helene.
Isn't it Halion?
Halion, no. We'll ask Martine. he won't give us an answer either.
Yeah.
So, but middle of last year, we were really trying to solve, because like you said, there was definitely something there. Mm-hmm. It wasn't fully clicking, right? There were still all these questions: how do we make this work? How do we get them back? It's too expensive. And I think that was really a big turning point middle of last year for our company. Is we started we pulled back a bit from trying to push the Series X onto the industry, which is kind of a Swiss Army knife, and say, if we're talking to high volume customers, let's make a product for them. Go talk to them. What do they want? We'll make specifically what you want. And we took that approach to Helene last year. I think it was June or July of last year. And ultimately in that meeting, we had this concept for a nesting pallet that would go inside of the Series X, and that way they could have a cheap pallet, and then you could have the benefits of the Series X sidewalls and things. And we took that in there, and to them it looked like a flat pallet. We had a little 3D printed prototype.
Sure.
And they're just like, yes, that's what we want.
Okay.
And take the Series X out of the picture. Like they didn't even really want the Series X. They were like, we just want a flat reusable pallet that is a very easy swap out for what we're doing today. And that was a huge turning point. And Martin, to his credit, has been, I met him for the first time 2-3 years ago. Yeah. And from day one, he's a believer. Another one of those examples of people that truly believe in sustainability and leaving the earth a better place. And he was bought in. He's been a huge champion for us. And that was one of the big turning points, is that we had full buy-in from Martin to make this work. And we had a solution that if and when we make it work, it's going to be scalable. It's going to be truly, it's more cost effective. It's an easy in with the manufacturer and their operations and manufacturing lines. So that was one of the biggest turning points, for sure, is getting Helene on board with us and making that happen.
For folks who aren't familiar with Martin and Helene, when I first met Martin, and I've known Helene for a long time, but when I first met Martin and did the interview with him, he talked about this Old Testament philosophy that's a part of the Jewish culture called Tikkun Olam, which I'm sure he's mentioned to you. And it's the whole essence of what are we doing to make the world a better place. So he's definitely, or I would say, I don't know if I'm capable of saying this because I'm not Jewish, but I feel like he's probably would be said by other Jewish people as a mensch, right? Like he's always looking at how do you connect the dots and add value for folks. And it's been, when I sort of looked into that Tikkun Olam philosophy, it really opened my eyes a little bit more to what does it look like as a business owner to infuse the culture with this broader purpose, this higher meaning that's philosophical. It's not we're trying to save the world by transitioning from fossil fuels. It is that we are trying to leave the world a better place. Yeah. And more than just the products we create, but the culture that we infuse into our company. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in the Midwest?
St. Louis, Missouri, yeah.
No way.
Yeah, Midwest boy.
Fantastic. Do you know, I think I probably asked you this before, but do you know Andy Klump? He's a St. Louis boy.
Yep. Yeah. No, Andy. Good guy.
Yeah.
That's kind of how we connected, was the St. Louis culture.
Yeah. So my guess, knowing Andy, is he reached out to you and he was like, hey, I see you're an entrepreneur in St. Louis working in PV.
I think so, yeah. It's been a while since we first met. I was doing like consulting work, I think, when I met him.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Andy, despite the fact that he's running a company as big as CEA, will absolutely listen to this episode.
Yeah.
And
hi, Andy.
Hi, Andy. And he will absolutely reach out to you and tell you congratulations for the episode. Awesome. It's mind-boggling to me how he gets time for the kind of, he's a voracious learner.
Yeah.
And he is a self-professed, like he has said to me, I've listened to every episode of Suncast.
Wow.
And that's over 700. And that's not the only podcast that he's listened to every episode. Wow. He's made recommendations. I'll send you some of the recommendations he's given me that are particular to founders that I don't know, like I don't remember the name of one of them in particular, but there's one that you should definitely listen to as a founder that's looking to like grow and have some sort of strategic, acquisition at some point. He's
got a lot of time on planes now too, so.
For sure. Button seat on the plane is when he's listening to stuff like this.
Totally.
But I get the feeling he doesn't sleep that much.
Yeah.
So it's fun for me to see that you grew up in the Midwest. Obviously the company's based in the Midwest. Where's headquarters?
Headquarters is in Montrose, Iowa.
Iowa.
We call it the Florida of Iowa. If you probably didn't know this, I didn't know this either until we started this company, but there's a little peninsula in the southeast corner of Iowa, right on the Mississippi River. We're right there.
Totally. And it's fun to see also that there's a big infusion of Midwest companies, including investors that are part of that. I presume that is part of being in the Midwest and the network that you have. But is there more to that? Is there an intentionality of keeping things within the family of Midwest?
Not so much intentionality. It's more just the nature of the Midwest culture and connections out there. I will say, we were kind of required to have our headquarters in Iowa because our VC investor was in Iowa, and they required the headquarters to be there. So the state of Iowa and everybody up there has been just incredibly supportive across the board. I mean, we've leveraged state funding for high quality jobs program from the state of Iowa. We've leveraged local economic development funding, VC networks up there, manufacturing networks, our logistics partners up there.
Isn't GRNE, Nelnet, they're there as well in Iowa?
I'm not sure.
I feel like they are. I feel like they're in Iowa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a small state. It's, believe it or not, this population of the entire state of Iowa is about the population of St. Louis. Which,
wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. But that means everybody's very well connected and everybody's willing to help. And the state of Iowa is investing a ton of money into building up the manufacturing and jobs and tech jobs. They're really trying to bolster up that state a lot. So the timing from that standpoint was good for us because we were kind of an innovative, up and coming company that they wanted to help see success.
Did you grow up thinking, I know you got your degree in mechanical engineering, but did you grow up thinking I want to be an engineer? Like, was that your path, your life path?
Well, if you go back to the very beginning, I wanted to be either a garbage man, because I got to ride on the trucks, or a Ghostbuster. So,
yes, of course. Yeah.
But no, I mean, I actually, if you would have asked me in high school, I was on like the high school newspaper, right? So I actually thought I was going to go into journalism at one point.
Yeah.
And so I went to Mizzou, University of Missouri.
Mizzou's one of the best journalism schools.
Exactly. And then freshman year, I decided, I'm good at math and science, and I just like tinkering with stuff and figuring out problems. So
we're about the same. Were you excited when Mizzou joined SEC?
SEC? I was excited at first. I thought it was going to be great, just to be in a more competitive division, and it's not turned out. I guess the last year or so has been good, but it was a rough decade.
It's really interesting, right?
Yeah.
When A&M and Mizzou joined the SEC, it was one of those weird kind of like, what's going on? I grew up in South Carolina, University of South Carolina, so I've been in the SEC my whole life. Did you play sports in high school or college?
Yeah. So I was a racquetball player. Actually.
Racquetball?
Yeah.
For real. So the whole pickleball phase right now is like loving
I actually just played pickleball yesterday.
Of course you did.
I was a racquetball guy randomly. I grew up playing baseball. I moved to a new school freshman year, tried out for the baseball team because I didn't know anybody, right? So I was basically cold tryout, and I broke my finger at tryouts. Grounder popped up and hit me in the index finger, and that basically put me out for the season. And so that was kind of the end of my baseball career. But freshman year, yeah. But I started playing racquetball freshman year. I was kind of originally cross training and just trying something new, and I love the sport. So
I started wrestling because I hated my baseball coach.
Really?
I played baseball from the time I was 4 years old.
Yeah.
And I hated my baseball coach, and so I lettered my freshman year in baseball.
Really?
But then I was like, anyway, I started wrestling to cross train between football and track.
Really?
Yeah, and I ended up being I went to the state championships in wrestling.
That's amazing.
It's crazy. Yeah. Cross training that turns into a sport that you love.
It's funny. It's like that's actually become kind of a founding pillar of my life.
It's a lifelong skill.
I played in college. I coached the high school team after college, and then
coached the high school. That's so cool.
Yeah, and two of the best men in my wedding were racquetball friends from high school. Like
no way.
Yeah, because it's such a small community.
Of course.
You make great friends.
I just recently read this stat, and I wish I could find the stat really quickly, but racket sports, in particular table tennis, proven to extend your life.
Really?
Yes. Like studies have shown that racket sports, and in particular table tennis, because of the dexterity and the mental acuity required,
really,
it will extend not just your life, but your presence of mind into old age. Yeah.
Now I've got a good excuse to get a ping pong table.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to get a ping pong table and keep playing pickleball.
Yeah. 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 So randomly, racquetball is my sport. Who can go figure, right?
So you ended up getting a mechanical engineering degree. You went to Mizzou, and then you sort of switched. Why'd you switch to engineering?
Journalism just wasn't it for me.
No.
I enjoyed it kind of, but I like having a definitive answer to things, and like journalism and communications.
I get definitive answers all the time.
Not where I come from. So I don't know.
In fairness, I studied zero journalism even after starting Suncast.
Oh, really?
I haven't actually studied journalism. I have no idea if I'm doing this right. People just
something's working if you're on 700, right? That's awesome.
That's just persistence. You can do 700 anything.
Yeah, it drove me. I don't know. I just like having an answer to things, and so engineering just started to click more and more. I didn't know much about it, so the more I looked into it, I was like, I think I could do this.
Yeah.
But I always, oddly enough, I wanted to do engineering, but I also knew I didn't want to do engineering long term.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
I had this theory like early on, when you're very money driven, and it's like engineers start out making good money post college, but the trajectory isn't high.
Yeah.
Whereas a business major starts off lower but has immense potential. So I knew I wanted to switch trajectories at some point.
Well, if I'd known this, and kudos to one of my best friends, he always made fun of me because I started in the engineering school and switched to business in undergrad.
Oh, really?
And that was a mistake.
Okay.
And I readily admit that was a mistake, but it was the best choice for me.
Yeah.
But it turns out that the best career trajectory is an engineer MBA.
Really?
In almost any field.
Perfect.
Yeah. An engineer MBA, because you learn what it's like. You learn the numbers, you learn hard skills around, solving problems.
Yeah.
And then in the business school, you learn financial accounting, you learn how businesses work. Right. I remember the same best friend, he came back to me when he was getting his MBA at NC State, and he said, I understand. He goes, I understand you so much better now.
Really?
Yeah. After going through his MBA program. Yeah. And he goes, I never would have given credit to it, but this MBA taught me how to handle people. Mm-hmm. And a lot of engineers sort of go into engineering because they don't like dealing with people.
Right.
And I went away from engineering because I liked people and I didn't like machines. I didn't like the whole process of I'm going to sit in front of a computer. I didn't realize that all of us were destined to sit in front of a computer the rest of our lives. Right. Yeah. So anyway,
and I will say, I got my MBA at Arizona State while I was living out in Arizona for 10 years before I got sucked back to Missouri. And I've always said I don't think I would have enjoyed the MBA or got a lot out of it if I had a business undergrad.
Yeah.
I think the combination, because there's a whole new world of education.
You have to understand the problems that you can solve with business skills.
Yeah.
All right. What was the pivot in your career that brought you into energy? I understand that your first job, I think, was Abengoa with regards to energy.
It eventually turned into Abengoa, but so originally, it started with just a network connection. My neighbor up the street was a VP of engineering at a Monsanto. At one time, it was a Monsanto subsidiary. They spun off. They were called MECS.
Yeah,
and they did sulfuric acid plants, design build. Go figure. Who goes to college and says, I want to design build a sulfuric acid plant? Nobody, right? But I got hired on there as an intern and did kind of, paper shuffling and checking drawings and things like that. But I liked the company, so I went there post-college. And right when I hired up, they had just finished kind of an experimental ethanol project. It was very small, but just to kind of dip their toes in the water and see if it was a good fit. And it was. So they were building up a EPC division that was focused on ethanol projects.
Wow.
And they put me in that division. So that kind of right out the gate set me down the energy path, if you will. So.
As I've told you, you've been in clean energy since 2006, 7, right?
6, yep.
Yeah. So you don't give yourself enough years.
I don't count the ethanol.
You say you've been 15
right?
and it's really 17.
Yeah, totally. So, and that was cool. I was on site as an engineer. I was seeing pumps and this process make corn into a vehicle fuel, which was pretty neat. And then Abengoa eventually acquired MECS, or the EPC part of it. And then they did ethanol for a few years till that market, as most people know, bottomed out in the late 2000s.
Right.
And,
when I was in grad school, I was really into biofuels.
Yeah.
Really thought that it was a boom. I was looking at all Jatropha and all the different types of biofuels, Yeah.
It's fascinating to me that there's ways to make energy and power that are sustainable.
Yeah.
And it's always been a really cool concept to me. It's I like the outdoors, like backpacking and doing things simply and efficiently.
So inside Abengoa, you got a chance then to expand beyond ethanol into this budding field of solar. And Abengoa was really well known at that time for concentrating photovoltaics.
Yeah, which as a mechanical engineer is
exactly what you're
frankly way cooler than PV.
Totally. Yeah. Moving parts.
Yeah, exactly. So they built two, I think they were 280 megawatt solar thermal plants, one in California and one in Arizona. Yeah. And I was an engineer designing
the only two that matter, really. They built the only two that matter in the US.
The solar, from the solar aspect.
Yeah.
The cool thing was the Arizona one had 8 hours of molten salt storage, so it could actually run into the night, which was revolutionary at the time.
And what year is this?
That was
2008.
Yeah, I think we were designing it in '08. I think they kicked off construction in '09 or 2010, somewhere around.
This is what I think that most people don't even realize is that 15 years ago, we were building baseload solar power plants.
Yeah, totally. And also the fact that that plant, I think, cost upwards of $2 billion for 280 megawatts.
Yeah.
And that was cost effective at the time, which is crazy to think about.
It is insane.
Yeah. So anyway, funny, I can go into it, I guess, if you want. I moved out to Arizona to work on that Gila Bend 280 megawatt project.
Yeah.
I was told had just started dating my girlfriend at the time and was told I was going to move out there. So we were like, are we going to break up? Like, I'm not going to do this long distance thing. So we moved out there together. She found a job before I did. So she moved in, I think, June or July.
Yeah.
And I was still in St. Louis. 2 weeks after she moved, they told me they kind of reneged.
That the project was delayed.
They said, we don't need you out there for another year or two. And I was like, well, crap. What do I do now? So I ended up leaving the company. I worked for CDM Smith in Arizona for a little over a year doing HVAC design for industrial projects. With
riveting.
Yeah. Sizing fans and blowers, it's like so
no offense to anyone who signs fans and blowers.
Yeah. Not for me. I'll just say that. So anyway, then Abengoa called me back and asked if I wanted to stay in Arizona and come back on to work for them and do business development. So,
cool.
So that was kind of my switch into the business side of the industry. Yeah.
And in the meantime, you had gotten your MBA?
Not yet. No. When did I do that? I graduated from that in 2014. So I did business development for a couple of years. I had always said, if I don't do it before I have kids, I'll never do it.
Yeah.
So knowing that clock was kind of coming up, I started working on my MBA, and I actually got my MBA 6 weeks before my first son was born.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. I got my MBA 2 weeks before I got married.
Did you really?
Yeah. And
nice honeymoon.
And my then fiance, now wife, got it it was a race. I said, who will stay, will live in the city of the place that whoever gets the first job.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did it work out?
It did. I mean, yeah.
Perfect.
Fantastic. She ended up working in wine. She got a wine job. And I still have wine in my basement from 20 years ago. Like we have a lot. We ended up acquiring a lot of wine at that time. Yeah. None of it, it's not like, some like Eagle Rare or anything like that. It's not like, I wish we had acquired some noteworthy wine like that, but I learned a lot about wine.
Yeah.
So were you still at Abengoa when you met the co-founder of PVPallet?
I was
Take me to
not.
that.
Yeah, we're going like the whole story here, which is fine. So Abengoa, as people who've been around long enough may remember, they had some very, I'll just say challenging financial times around 2015. And by challenging financial times, I mean they went bankrupt. I was on a vacation actually with my wife and kids, and got a call from my boss, and he said, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but you are not going to have a job tomorrow, and neither will anybody at this company.
Oh my God.
So I spent my week in Hawaii trying to figure out what was next. So serendipitously, I had a contract in hand that was literally fully negotiated, ready to sign. It was just front-end design, which historically we've been doing, $100 million plus EPC jobs. And this was basically a job that was doable by a small team of a few people. No idea how it worked out that I had that at that time, but I did. So I spent the week calling people that were supposed to be on
This was just like a total side deal, or?
It became a side deal, yeah. I mean, the contract was an Abengoa
this was a contract for Abengoa.
Yeah. And
Abengoa
is no more. So I called the customer, I called a few guys that were supposed to be on the project, and I said, why don't we do this? We're going to be looking for jobs anyway. Like, worst case, it doesn't pan out and we're in the same situation we're in today.
Right.
So we went for it, and that turned into my first entrepreneurial foray, which was Prism Sustainable Solutions.
Yeah.
So me and another guy, Chris Pickett, who's today works for NRS, we started Prism, and the whole business model was providing front-end preliminary design for project developers, doing all the energy modeling, preliminary layouts, and helping with interconnect queues and all that. And funny enough, that whole time, it got to the point, it was fun for the first year or so when you're building something, and then you start becoming a true consultant where you're selling hours, and every hour you're not working, you feel like you're losing money.
Yep.
And I said, man, I wish I just had like a product that was really cool and just sold itself.
Yeah. And now you have a product that's really cool.
That's really cool. It doesn't sell itself. That's what I found. Basically, there's no shortcuts, right? I mean, that's kind of the overarching lesson of entrepreneurship. Everybody, when you look at successful entrepreneurs, you see the tip of the iceberg. You see the success. You don't see all the back end work. And quite frankly, nothing's easy.
Yeah.
It's now I have a really cool product that should sell itself, and it's still challenging in other ways. So, but anyway, I did consulting for a few years. Got tired of that, wanted to roll that up, and my partner acquired my part of the business, and then I moved to St. Louis.
Which is kind of back home.
Yeah, be closer to family. We had 3 kids at that point. And I worked for Raceline, which is a St. Louis-based company, and one of their core offerings was renewable natural gas projects.
Okay.
So again, renewable energy, not solar, but they would go to hog farms, and the big manure lagoon that's emitting all this methane gas, they would cap it with a HDPE membrane, capture the gas and blow it into a gas cleaning system and turn it into natural gas pipeline quality. So you could sell the gas into as if it was just normal natural gas.
Were those hog farms? Because we're thinking I have a friend that's working on this. I have a friend. Well played. I have a friend that's working on this in North Carolina. But the big problem is actually getting the pipelines from the hog farms to the natural gas distribution.
Yeah, I think Duke is actually working on a massive, with like hundreds of farmers across the area to try to aggregate all their gas, and that's a big challenge. The ones that we did were for Smithfield Farms and a couple other big hog farm companies. So it was more
localized. So they were using cogen on site.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
how interesting. And how did you meet?
Well, they were, but they would also sell the gas into the pipeline. The crazy thing is California had these incentives for natural gas, where the sales price of the gas was based on the carbon footprint reduction from baseline.
Right.
So and hog farms are huge methane emitters. So the price, and because the pipelines, even in Missouri, were connected to California, they could sell into these pipelines and take advantage of the California policies.
Amazing.
They're making a ton of money doing that.
That's a great hack.
Yeah. And it's still a great industry. So, but the funny thing was, with my background, I went to Raceline. I was the only person that knew anything about solar in the whole company. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, your sales price is based on carbon footprint reduction, but you're using the Missouri power grid to power these, which is predominantly coal and natural gas. Like, why don't you put solar on these and you can get not only will you offset the power cost, but you'll get a higher sales price on the gas. So I started working on that, and that was ultimately where I met my co-founder, Luke Phillips, who he had an install business up in northern Missouri, and he was putting solar on farms. And he had a lunch and learn. I went to vet his company to see if they could work and do the installations at these job sites that I was on.
How fun. Yeah.
And it didn't pan out, of course, but we met and made a good connection. And 6 months later, he called me up with this pallet concept.
And Luke's a tinkerer, right?
Oh yeah. He's a mad scientist. He's always got new ideas. He's just one of those guys that just can't stop trying to figure out new ideas for new problems. He's an awesome guy. Yeah.
One of the things you told me that I appreciate about Luke is that he knew from the very beginning that he was the spin the top, get the top spinning kind of guy. Not the carry the product to market kind of guy.
Totally. Yeah.
How did that dynamic work out as co-founders for you guys, and how did you guys set the business up so that you could play off your strengths?
We early on, basically, we talked about it. He knew that at some point he didn't want to grow the company. He was the true entrepreneur, that has crazy ideas, throws money and heart at them, and sees them to basically materialization, but doesn't want to build a company, doesn't want to build a structure. So, and that's what I really enjoyed doing. That's what I liked about when I had Prism, was building out the marketing plan and the business plan and trying to find new customers. And so we agreed early on at some point that I would take over the company. And, even with those agreements in place, there's still challenges, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's, in a lot of ways, it's his baby, it's his original idea. And so kind of turn the keys over to somebody else. It's it can be challenging. It can be frustrating. And at some point, we've had some hiccups along the way, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, Luke, we can't be on LinkedIn. Like, you can't be talking about this like it's your company still. Like, we're trying to build the brand around our team today, not the founding story, right? So just things like that along the way.
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
He self-funded the early days, right?
He
Before
did,
you did the seed round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he put, I probably shouldn't say numbers, but he put a good chunk of money in, and that was equity in the business for him. And then he put more money in.
When it started working.
He just, frankly, I think he was just writing checks and didn't know, wasn't keeping track, but ultimately he put a sizable amount of money in. So a portion of his initial investment is equity and a portion of it's debt.
I'm interested to better understand the way that you structured the company as the co-founders, knowing that he was going to, over time, I'm going to say divest of like the day-to-day. And in the VC world, it's called dead wood, right? It's like somebody who owns a lot of the company, but isn't active day-to-day.
Yeah.
How did you guys navigate the waters? And is there anything that you would advise for founders and co-founders that are thinking about raising money and some of the hurdles that you overcome or have to address that you didn't anticipate? Things like, equity versus debt when you're trying to raise money, when you're trying to get business loans and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of lessons learned along the way of building this business, especially on the money side of things. I think step one, keep track of things early on. I think there's probably a lot of investors or entrepreneurs out there that just want to see this thing through and they're just pumping money in as the business needs it. And that's great. If you're just trying to get something off the ground.
If I had to bring on partners right now, it would be, we're finally cleaning it up, but it would, a year ago, it would have been a mess.
Exactly. If you're the sole owner, sole proprietor of the business, you can do that. But
I had people want to invest in the company and they couldn't because it was a mess.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly my point. Yeah. It's, so keep track early on. And if you know that you're going to have partners and investors, like you have to be smart about the way you're structuring it, how much you're investing, even the company itself, at one point, we started off with an LLC.
Yeah.
And when we wanted to get VC money, we had to reincorporate the company as a C Corp.
Yep.
So that's one. I mean, if you know you're going to go out for funding, just go to a C Corp out the gate.
Yep, out the gate. Is there a difference, like functionally for a VC from S Corp and C Corp? Is it easy to just start out as an S Corp? Like a lot of us are like, oh, we should be an LLC and then eventually I'll pay myself as an S Corp and save taxes. And then if I ever try to raise money, I'll switch to C Corp.
It's just.
I know you're not giving tax advice. But
yeah, no, it's just to go to a C Corp, it was just a time and money investment. And it wasn't substantial, but it's just like one more thing you have to, when you're trying to start the business, it's like, oh my, now we have to do this. My understanding of S Corp, because we were S Corp at Prism.
Okay.
And I think that's more just from a tax standpoint.
It is.
Right? You're still an LLC, but you file as an S Corp to take advantage of some tax items.
Exactly.
So,
okay.
But yeah, if you know you're going to own the business, or maybe you just have one partner, you guys are never going to go out for money, I would say LLC, S Corp is probably the way to go.
Yep.
But if you know you're going to go out for outside investment, I would go to a C Corp as soon as possible.
Less than one. And then is there anything structural that you would do differently?
Here's one of the biggest challenges that we've had with the structure of our business and with Luke. He exiting the business. He has his own another company, Vroom Solar, that he was really passionate about getting off the ground, and which is awesome. But with him not actively involved in the business, as you I'm sure know, when you're startup, personal guarantees, everybody wants them, right? Yep. And he owned, because he was the majority investor, majority founder, he owned a sizable chunk of the business. And when you're going out for, particularly in our case, we were looking for SBA loans because we had equipment investments. Anybody who owns more than 20% of the business has to put up a personal guarantee. Jeez. There's no way around it. So with him, but he at that point wasn't in the day-to-day.
Yeah.
And he had already put up a ton of money. So he's like, I don't want to do any more personal investments. Yeah. So we had to essentially buy out enough of his shares to get him below 20%. Oh. And the other kind of nuance to that is that there's a rearward-looking 6-month window. Oh, so really? You can't just be like, oh, I need this loan next week. Let's get him down, and we'll be done.
So it slowed you down 6 months, and you had to go probably raise money to buy him out.
Well, we're working on that, but yes, right? It was structured. The buyout was structured as debt, so essentially we're paying, a decent chunk of money every month every month to buy those shares back, which is a bummer. I mean, but it's just part of the business. So.
Did that get factored into the kind of the waterfall for you with the SBA loan?
In what sense?
In terms of like use of funds, like does the SBA care?
We didn't end up actually doing it. So, no.
Okay.
No.
So by the time you got everything worked out, you didn't need the loan anymore.
Startup life. Right?
That's a great place to be, though. Hey.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it is. But yeah, it's you do all this prep and then find out you didn't need it. Because I mean, silver lining, sales have been going well enough that we didn't need the SBA loan.
Yeah.
Another really fun lesson learned from my standpoint, if you'd like to hear it, is I was issued restricted shares, and this is a lesson for anyone that's issued restricted shares. There's a tax form called a 529 that has to be filed within, I think it's 30 or 60 days of award.
And if you don't?
So what that does is if you're on a vesting schedule, which I was, basically sweat equity, and I had to earn the full equity over 3 years. If you file it, from a tax standpoint, your tax basis is the initial value of the stock. And regardless of when they vest. So basically you owe no taxes until your buyout, whenever that may be. If you don't file it, every vesture, you're taxed based on the fair market value at that vesture date. So I've had to pay a substantial amount of taxes because that was never explained to me, how critical that was. And there's no going back. Like I've talked to many CPAs, many lawyers trying to there's gotta be a way to fix this.
Yeah.
And there's not. So if anyone out there has issued restricted shares on a vesting schedule, make sure you get your 529s in. Because I would much rather use that.
Even if it's not on a vesting schedule. If you're issued restricting shares, whether they're vesting or whether it's
I think it really comes down to the vesting schedule. Because if you're issued the shares, they are what they are on that date.
Yeah.
But the vesture is really, because in theory your business is growing in value over time. So say they're worth, I issue you a share, it's worth $10 today. Next year we're doing awesome, it's worth 100. If it invests at that 100, you owe taxes on that 100.
Yeah.
So and there's no way around it. So I would have much rather used the money I paid to the IRS to put into the business.
Yeah.
So I've in a roundabout way invested a sizable amount into sustaining the business, but it didn't go into the company, unfortunately. So that's always a fun story to tell.
It seems like one thing that the PVpallet business could borrow from the recycling industry is this whole idea of a collective, right? That everyone pays towards this common good that we agree everyone should do. Have you guys gotten any progress on that concept?
In terms of an actual collective, I would love to start a consortium like that.
Yeah.
Or we've not really pushed on that yet. We're still kind of working on a one-on-one basis, but I do strongly believe there's enough people out in this industry that want to see the change. And I've been saying this for a long time. We just need to get everybody in a room together and say, we all want this. Let's work this out with the contract structures, with the incentives, whatever it needs to be. Let's all just put our heads together and figure out how we can make it work. And frankly, with Helene, I think we're going to see some of that because I know their customers want it. Helene wants it. And really it just comes down to how do we get these back? Who's on the hook for them if they don't get back? And how do we turn these, right? Because reusable packaging, the ROI, the payback period relies on reuse, right? So if you turn them once a year, it's going to take several years for them to break even. If you use them once a month or once every quarter, they're probably going to be paid back within 1 to 2 years.
Normally, this is the part where I would ask you questions specific to how much it costs and stuff like that. But my guess is where you're at in the business, it's everything is a special use case. It's it really depends. And so it probably isn't worth going down that rabbit hole right now. But I wonder, are there other challenges to the business model besides who pays for it, how to get the pallets back, and generally just the marketing nature of the business that you haven't talked about?
Well, I will say, just on that point, you're correct. Everybody has their own variables and use cases, and that changes the payback period. But generally speaking, 2 to 5 uses is the range that we see, regardless of who is using them, where they are, et cetera. So, it's a reasonably fast payback period.
That is remarkably fast. Yeah.
But from other challenges standpoint,
and that includes the PV loop service.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Everybody always says, well, now I have to pay for logistics, whereas I'm just throwing these things out before. I'm like, well, throwing things out isn't free. You have to pay disposal costs.
That's right.
You have to pay your laborers to go pick up all the trash around the job site. So, and that's we have a whole built out ROI calculator where we of shed the light on those hidden costs that people may not think about. The other challenge that's actually come recently, kind of to the forefront, is the carbon footprint, right? So today, with that PV loop program, because we don't have facilities built out across the country yet, if you want to clean, refurbish, you either have to send them back to Iowa,
Right.
which is in some cases, a long transportation leg, or set up a cleaning facility on site or at the supplier. But if we're sending these things out today, like we are to Iowa, the carbon footprint is large.
Yeah, it goes up.
Which we are actively working to strategize on.
Yeah.
Is it cleaning at the job site? Is it cleaning at the supplier? Is it a regional center that we need to build out to do decent, warehousing and cleaning? So we're analyzing a lot of that right now behind the scenes to figure out what the best approach is at scale.
Yeah. I'm at Vanessa and a few others. How many people does it take to run this kind of thing?
We've got 10 right now.
10?
Yeah. Yep. So plus a few other contractors and consultants that help out as needed. But yeah, we're a lean and mean team right now. We're trying to keep it,
What's been,
relatively speaking. We have a Series A raise open right now.
Okay.
We just opened a couple weeks ago.
how much are you looking to raise?
10 million.
10?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you have a timeline to close?
6 months is kind of the projection.
Okay, so a year.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Just double it all. That's basically, take projections and either cut them in half or double them. But no, 6 months is what we're shooting for right now.
Got it. So like into Q3.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I say that to say that part of the use of funds is hiring more personnel. So we expect to hire 10 to 15 more people in the next year.
Doubling.
Yep.
Okay. So how do you get from here to there as a CEO, as a leader? What are some of the management challenges you've run into, and how are you managing yourself through that process of learning to build out a team and delegate?
One of the biggest lessons learned, honestly, is especially in like a corporate environment, you hear people talk about mission and culture and kind of roll your eyes, but it is so damn important when building out, especially a small startup team. Everybody has to be bought into the mission, which ours is waste reduction.
Yeah.
And we've got our core values, which again, you hear that in a corporate environment and roll your eyes, but it's true. Like it's authenticity, it's having fun, it's innovating. And we hire, reward, and fire if we have to based on the mission and core values.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
is there a vision that's separate from the mission in that regard?
We actually use, I've found it immensely helpful for the business. And this is kind of a whole nother tangential storyline, but late 22, around September, it was actually RE Plus that year. I kind of felt like we had the squirrel syndrome. It's like every meeting, it's like, well, what about this? Or what about this? And I was like, we really just need to hone this in and get like, what is our marching orders? What are we really working on?
Yeah.
And I found this system, which in the entrepreneurial world isn't that uncommon. I think a lot of people know about it. It's called Traction.
Yeah.
It's by Gino Wickman, I think.
Wickman,
yeah. And we sat down for several days before RE Plus. It was a very long week when you add it all together. I think we dedicated 3 days to really just kind of.
Did you hire an implementer?
No.
You did it.
Not yet. Yeah.
Ah.
So blank slate. We kind of started fresh. Like and the key to that, I almost look at it like a funnel. I don't remember if they describe it that way in the book or not, but what that book makes you do is establish that mission and core values.
Yeah.
And we spend a lot of time coming up on what those truly should be. And that kind of forms the overall mentality, but then you build the 10-year plan, and then a 3-year vision, I think it is, and then a 1 year. And that it gets more and more specific as you get closer to today, right?
Yep.
And that really set us, and then the final one is you set quarterly rocks or goals.
Yep.
And that really just kind of like realigned the whole company.
It.
Yeah, it did. So that was
How
huge.
many people were there at that time?
5 or 6 maybe.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really, it's really prescient that you, at that small of a company, relatively speaking, we're like, look, let's get this right now. Let's plant the seed.
Frankly, I wish we would have done it, a year or two sooner.
Wow.
And I've told people, I've just friends that are starting businesses, trying to partner up with people and get things off the ground. I'm like, you really should read this book and implement it now.
Oh yeah.
Because those conversations and the results of those conversations, like if you guys aren't aligned, it's a hell of a lot easier to determine that up front and have a hard conversation and say this isn't.
There's 3 books, and you're probably getting ready. Like it's kind of up to it's like getting started up to about 10 million, it's traction. And then from 10 million to 100 million, it's a book called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. Okay. If you want to think about it as 3 books. And then from 100 million and on, there's a book called 3-Hag Way that you probably haven't heard of. 3-Hag Way. And
3-Hag, H-A-G.
H-A-G. And it's like the canon of like scaling to 100 million.
Got it.
And I've, in the coaching world, like it's fairly well known, but I've engaged with a lot of different folks. I'm going to have Maria Kingery from Southern Energy Management, co-founder with her husband, Bob. She went off and started coaching for the last few years as an implementer for EOS, and she's now on her own, like kind of make kind of a blended philosophy.
Yeah.
Like a bit evolved from EOS, but it is remarkable to me that the number of founders I've met who, when you almost can identify them, it's like, oh, this guy or this girl are they're EOS acolytes.
Yeah.
You know,
as soon as you hear someone say the word rocks, you know, like that's,
yep.
Right.
Yep. That's one of the clear indicators.
Totally. But the other thing that whole system helped to do, because of the mission and core values, is we've built out, and like my team is awesome. I love these people. And what's critical to, you asked the next step to get us to that Series A, is our team is just fantastic, and I truly feel like I have a team that I can put trust in. And we're to the point as a company, which feels really cool, just for the record, for entrepreneur CEOs out there, when you get to the point where like things just happen.
Oh yeah, people are working on stuff you didn't know they were working on.
Yes, and it's like, wow, you guys are doing that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so just having that faith in my team and knowing that like I can focus on the funding now and really hammer this.
Do you remember?
Whereas earlier rounds, it was like, I'm trying to fundraise and do this and this, and it's just.
Are you more of a visionary or an architect, or are you both?
I want to say I'm more visionary, but as an engineer, I think I tend toward, more of a execution guy.
Sure. But clearly, if it's working for you now and you're out able to focus on the money, then you've got a hands-on person on your team.
Yeah.
Who's that person?
Well, Vanessa, you just met earlier today. She's our head of marketing, but she is, in startup world, right? You wear a lot of hats. Yeah. She's definitely, I can always count on her to just dive into whatever it is.
Is there anything in terms of the vernacular that you use in the way that you try to educate your customers that you just wish everyone better understood so you didn't have to repeat it in every meeting?
The first thing that comes to mind when you say that is I have to catch myself when I'm talking to outsiders. EPCs, or not EPCs, investors, VCs, funding guys, and I always talk about modules, and they don't know what the hell a module is, right? No. So I always have to make sure that I'm explaining things in terms of what people not in the industry relate to, right? So it's a solar panel. What's a gigawatt, right?
Right.
If you're not in power, you don't know what that means. So there is definitely, when I'm going out for third-party funding, this like bridge I have to build in terms of the way I talk.
It's important for everyone to think about.
Yeah.
You've shared a lot about sort of lessons learned, but is there anything that was given to you, wisdom that someone who mentored you, that you now have internalized and would pass along as advice for entrepreneurs?
One thing our sales director, Craig Morris, has always said is just do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
And that's so simple, but it's so poignant and so important. And it's not just, as an entrepreneur, it's not just to your customers, it's to your team.
Too,
it's to your investors.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there, especially in the entrepreneur world, that will just say whatever the hell they want to say, right?
That's right.
Whatever sounds good.
Yep.
And that's a very quick path to failure in my mind.
I love that you bring that up. I've shared it a number of times. One of the guys that I admire is Tim Davey. He started a company that I worked for, Davey Roofing, which was DRI. And I remember sitting in the first day onboarding as an employee, and you go through the company. It was the first time I'd been in a company where there was like core values and whatnot. And it was a really weird experience, right? I was like, I don't understand this. I'm watching a video. It's like the core values. And the very first core value is do what you say you will do.
Really? It's important. As soon as you start, inflating things you say or not delivering to customers, or you make promises to your team and don't follow through, like that trust breaks down very quick.
Yeah. We have kind of going through the EOS process informally with Suncast now. And on my very short list of values that are concrete that will be documented for the company is do what you say you will do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So
how do you, outside of the PVPallet time, how do you sharpen your mind? How do you spend your time?
oh man, my passion is backpacking.
Yeah.
Yeah, like not like through Europe kind of back, but like mountain
wilderness, yeah.
out in the woods.
Where do you like to go?
I love anything west of the Rockies.
Yeah?
Yeah, love it out west. There's just so many beautiful vistas and mountains and river, everything.
Is there a place that if you would say, hey, if you are at all interested in backpacking, you don't have to be an expert. You should be a little bit more than a novice.
Yeah.
This is a place you have to have on your bucket list.
So the Cascades in general, they're
Where's
just
that?
gorgeous. That's in Washington, Oregon.
Okay.
The mountain range up there.
Cascade
Beautiful,
Mountains.
the Cascades. But if you were to do one hike, and it's tough. It's a lot of miles, a lot of elevation,
Yeah.
but it's doable in a
moderate.
day. It's called the Enchantments.
Enchantments.
It's in the Cascades. You drive to a town called Leavenworth, which is also a super cool town. It's like
In
this is in Washington.
Okay.
It basically looks like if you've ever seen Frozen, or it looks like this old like Scandinavian village.
No way.
And they have a German
Surrounded by water?
not the village, but yeah, it's all frozen and there's a princess and but no, just a cool town. They have an Oktoberfest, like for the whole. It's like a very German Scandinavian type place.
Sure.
So it's near there, but the hike is a grueling hike, like up all these switchbacks. But then you go over the pass and you crest the hill, and it's just like a wonderland up there. It's insanely beautiful. And we actually did it in September, which in September, there's these trees called larches, which I had never heard of until I went up there. They look like pines, right? So they've got needles, they're kind of spindly, but they turn this magnificently beautiful golden color every fall, and they actually drop their needles. But if you time it so you're there,
and the needles are golden.
Golden.
Whoa.
Yeah, and you've got these crystal blue alpine lakes and these snow-capped mountains surrounding you. It's just like another world. But that's hands down my favorite hike I've been on, and it's a day hike if you're ambitious.
Wow.
But I just love getting out and being self-sufficient, getting off-grid, deconnecting. Like there's no way. You're totally disconnected. There's no way to reach you out there.
Yep.
And, from my standpoint, like environmentally, like you're living out of your backpack. And at the end of the week, I've got a Ziploc bag full of trash.
Yes, you do, because you're taking it back because you leave no trace.
I am, of course.
Love it.
But the fact that,
What's
at
that?
home,
And it's called again?
The hike?
Yeah.
The Enchantments.
Enchantments. So I'm going on the Enchantments, and I'm going to go for it overnight.
There you go.
Okay. I'm taking my lightweight backpack, 30 pounds, and I'm going to 25 pounds, and I'm going to lightweight go up and camp overnight.
Yeah.
What book am I taking with me?
Ooh.
Besides Traction.
Man, if you want to go dark with it, I really like The Road by Cormac McCarthy.
The Road.
Yeah, it was actually made into a movie with the guy that played Aragorn in Lord of the Rings. What's his name? Viggo Mortensen?
Don't know.
Anyway, it's like post-apocalyptic, dad and son that are trying to get to the ocean, like the world's in total disarray. And
I think I've seen this movie. I haven't seen the movie. I've seen the
book's fantastic.
The Road.
Yeah, The Road.
And who's it by?
Cormac McCarthy.
Cormac. Okay.
Yeah. It's just a great story, and it's if you're into that kind of stuff, it's a really cool like dad and son story too.
I love that.
If you want to be productive, like a self-help type book, The Comfort Crisis.
The Comfort Crisis. Okay.
It's all
I'm gonna
about,
write these down actually.
It's all about how basically the way we live is not the way humans have evolved to live, and getting out of your day-to-day comfort zone. It just basically.
Who wrote that?
I'll
look it up.
I can't remember.
No, you keep talking.
Yeah. But it's just all about getting out of your comfort zone and how basically it can extend your life and broaden your mind.
Michael Easter.
Yes, that's one. Michael Easter, yeah. And to be fair, I might connect with it more because there's kind of a side story in there about this guy who goes on this Alaskan expedition out in the middle of nowhere. So I totally connect with it. But it really opened my mind to like, just get off your ass and go push yourself to do new things.
Totally.
And that's how life flashes you by is if you just start doing the same thing day in, day out. Like you gotta push yourself.
I don't know if you follow Jesse Itzler. You know Jesse Itzler?
I don't know.
Okay, Jesse Itzler is Sarah Blakely's husband.
Oh, okay.
Sarah Blakely from Spanx.
Yeah.
They both are ridiculously successful entrepreneurs. He goes through a whole like annual planning process, which is fantastic. I'll share it another time with you. I'll send you there. He actually has a video on YouTube that you can look up. Anyone can look up. It's Plan Your 2024 in 24 minutes. Jesse Itzler. Just look it up. We'll link to it in the show notes. It's fantastic because he talks about the methodology he goes through to plan a year so that you accomplish shit in your life, not just in your business. Okay. And I love that. I love that. Do you have any rituals or habits that that you instill into your daily to try to show up better?
I didn't know that it was called this, or if it is even truly called this, but in that book, they put a name to it, and it's called a misogi or misogi. Yeah.
Itzler talks about this.
Yes. And
this is awesome.
I wouldn't say it's like a day-to-day ritual, but I always have.
So it's like it's a big thing for the year.
Yes.
Right?
And it's something that pushes you. And
I'm going to start asking this question on every interview. What's your misogi? And I'll define it.
We're always planning the next trip. So as soon as we're done with one of these backpacking trips, we're like trying to plan the next one, and we're always pushing it harder and farther, right? So,
okay.
Anyway,
cool.
That's kind of my rituals. I always have to have something in the achievable near midterm that I'm working toward.
Yeah, it's funny because I know it's a Japanese word, and I always think unagi. I'm like, no, it's not unagi. I got to plan my unagi. So like, we're going to go sushi. All right.
So my latest was I ran a marathon for the first time on my 40th birthday. So that was kind of just randomly. I was like, I found out the St. Louis Marathon was on my on my 40th birthday.
What?
And I took that as like, I have to.
That's a sign.
Yeah, I have
totally
to.
sign.
So. Yeah. And then next after that, me and the guys that I do these trips with, we're going to go summit Mount Rainier, which is the tallest glacier.
Who are these guys? And
they're actually from CDM Smith, guys I worked with for a very short stint of time in Arizona.
How crazy.
Yeah.
How many?
Just two guys.
It's just the three of you.
We have a core. We call ourselves the Donner Party because people always come with us, but then they never come back again.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Well, sign me up. I'll go to one of these.
Totally, man.
Yeah.
I'd love to have it.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah. Well, I'm sure somebody's going to want to reach out to you. If they're so inclined, how do you like to be found?
LinkedIn's great. You can always reach me at PVPallet or P Schwarz with no T at PVPallet.com.
SCHWARZ.
SCHWARZ. P Schwarz at PVPallet.com.
Schwarz.
But LinkedIn's always easy. So, that's a good spot to reach me. I get a lot of spam on there. So
love it.
You got to make sure you shout out Suncast when you reach out.
That's right. Yep. Just say, heard you on Suncast. Just wanted to know if I could pick your brain. Never say that, ever. Don't say pick your brain. No, don't want to pick our brain. My brain has been picked thoroughly. All right, Philip, as we wrap, I have two more final questions for you. The first is, if you could leave every person that you meet with one thing, feeling, an idea, an inspiration, what would that be?
Can I do two?
Sure.
The first just goes back to what we were just talking about, which is always be pushing yourself. Just don't let life pass you by. It's short, and the older I get, and some people say I'm not that old. Sometimes I feel old, and sometimes I don't. But it goes fast, and especially when you've got kids. Like I have 3 kids, and seeing how fast that's gone by, it's like it's over in a blink. So always be learning and always be pushing yourself. That's number one, and 2 is just leave the world a better place than you are today.
Leave no trace. Actually, leave a trace, hopefully, as an entrepreneur, but leave it better.
Yeah, but it's the single use mentality of our culture today is just frankly despicable. I hate it, and we can do better. Yeah, and that culture has really only taken
always
shape.
Carry a bottle.
Exactly. Yeah. Got one here too.
Love it. Actually, they're both Meyer Burger bottles. I love it. He was like, "Are you promoting Meyer Burger?"
But that the whole single-use culture really, it's new. It's not that old. It's maybe a few decades old, and we can shift back to the way it should be. So, think about the waste you're creating. I live and breathe it every day now, and I'm very self-conscious about waste in general. So once you start thinking about packaging and just crap you're just throwing away for no reason, like, do better. That's all.
Final question. What will have changed as a result of the work that you're doing?
We are going to eliminate literally billions of pounds of wood waste from landfills and billions of pounds of solar panel breakage waste. We will make this industry better, greener, more sustainable, and more cost effective in the process.
From your lips to God's ears, let's see it happen. If you are watching and you want to change the way your product gets to site and the waste stream that results from it, please reach out. Philip Schwarz is the co-founder and CEO of PVpallet. It's such an honor to have you on the show. So thank you for coming into Chicago. I know that you're en route to San Francisco, dropping into the Midwest Solar Expo while we're hanging out here for us to do this interview. It's great to see you.
Absolutely, man. Thank you very much. Pleasure.
If this is something that really inspires you, we have more than 700 episodes like this that I hope you'll dig into. Thank you for sticking around all the way to the end. I love you, you all the way to the end episode listener, you. And I want to just encourage you, please take a moment, go check out the show notes. There's a bunch of stuff that we referenced in this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be down in the description. But I want you to continue to dig in and learn, which is why I hope that you'll subscribe to the podcast or subscribe to our YouTube channel, wherever you are. And if you're on YouTube, please smash the like button. That's how YouTube knows that we're doing something that is relevant, because people like you have to tell them, because I can only do so much on my side. So please help us with that. And lastly, I want to thank our sponsors who make sure that the only thing you have to pay is your attention. They take care of the rest. They pay the bills around here so that you just have to show up and learn and enjoy. I hope that you have enjoyed. I thoroughly did enjoy this episode. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Vanessa, and the team that helped make this possible. And of course, thank you for taking time to be here with us. Remember, you are what you listen to. Thanks again for showing up, Solar Warrior. It's half the battle.